She was mopping the marble floor near Gate 7 when it happened. 3 travelers, lost and frantic, surrounded her. One speaking Arabic, another in Japanese, and the last in French. She didn't hesitate. Evelyn switched between the languages like a radio tuning between stations, calm, precise. From the balcony above, Thomas Whitmore stopped mid-step. He gripped the railing, eyes narrowing. Who was this woman, and how had no one noticed her until now? Back in his corner office overlooking the city, Thomas Whitmore couldn't shake the image. A janitor, speaking 3 languages, effortlessly, in a train station where most executives couldn't even greet in another tongue. He called down to HR. Who's the cleaning staff on shift this week? They didn't know. No one had ever asked. Later that afternoon he saw her again, pushing a cart, head down, invisible to the dozens of people passing her by. But not to him, not anymore. He watched as she spoke softly to a lost couple in Italian, then gave directions in perfect Portuguese to a confused technician. That night, he searched her name in the employee database. Evelyn Carter. No notes, no records, except years of spotless performance in a job no one noticed. This is the story of how a woman hidden in plain sight revealed a brilliance no one expected and changed everything. But Evelyn still had no idea what was coming next. Evelyn Carter arrived every evening just before sunset, slipping in through the service entrance of Whitmore Transit Corporation. Her uniform was always neat, her posture straight. She greeted the night guards with a quiet nod, wheeled her cart to the supply closet, and began her rounds without a word. 12 years, 6 nights a week, always the same route, always invisible. In the gleaming halls of the corporate tower, Evelyn was as much a fixture as the walls. She moved through conference rooms and break areas unnoticed, her cart rattling softly against polished tile. Executives passed her with half smiles or polite thank yous, never asking her name. She didn't mind. At least that's what she told herself. Her world was quiet, ordered, but not empty. In the quiet hours after most had gone home, Evelyn would sit for 10 minutes on a bench outside the language department. She wasn't allowed in, but from that bench she could hear the recording students left behind. Greetings in Mandarin, business terms in Swahili, conversations in Turkish. She memorized them all. She had notebooks at home, dozens, filled with vocabulary, grammar notes, pronunciation drills. No one knew. No one asked. Sometimes, when wiping fingerprints off glass doors, she'd silently recite verbs in German or construct full dialogues in Farsi in her head. It kept her sharp. It kept her sane. But deep down, Evelyn still carried the ache of a question that never left her. What if? What if her life had gone a little differently? What if someone had seen her before life made her invisible? Most days, she buried that question under duty, under bills and fatigue. But some nights, especially the quiet ones, she let herself wonder. One evening, as she cleaned the executive lobby, 2 junior analysts walked past her without noticing. One dropped a sandwich wrapper on the floor. Evelyn bent to pick it up. One of them glanced back and muttered, "She probably doesn't even speak English." They laughed. Evelyn didn't flinch. She just straightened, tossed the wrapper away, and returned to her work. But something in her chest felt heavier than usual, and that was the night she saw him again, Thomas Whitmore, watching her from the hallway. It was the first time anyone had really seen her in years, and it was there, in that quiet, fluorescent-lit hallway, that everything began to shift. Evelyn had once dreamed in many languages. As a child in Newark, her favorite pastime wasn't playing with dolls. It was mimicking accents from her father's shortwave radio. At 11, she taught herself basic Spanish from a thrift store book. By 14, she was dabbling in Russian, Korean, and Italian. Her parents, factory workers with modest means, thought it was a harmless obsession. But to Evelyn, language was freedom. She won a scholarship to Rutgers, majoring in linguistics. Her professors called her a natural, a gifted mimic, someone with an almost musical ear for rhythm and tone. Her dream, to become a diplomatic interpreter for the United Nations. She could already see it, her own name on a plaque, her voice echoing in world conferences. Then life intervened. In her second year, her mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Her father couldn't handle it. He left. Evelyn dropped everything, school, job, dream, to care for the woman who had always believed in her. She thought it would be temporary, 1 semester, maybe 2. But after her mother passed, there were bills, debts, and soon after, Evelyn found out she was pregnant. The father, a graduate student she'd dated briefly, disappeared as quickly as her last tuition refund. Her daughter Rachel was born the following winter. Evelyn took whatever job she could: cashier, temp secretary, overnight cleaner. The dream got folded up, pressed beneath the weight of real life. Years passed, rent was due, groceries had to be bought. Rachel needed school supplies, dentist visits, a warm coat each winter. Evelyn became a ghost with a mop and a steel spine, functioning, surviving, but never really living. Every once in a while she'd pick up an old French novel or listen to Turkish radio while folding laundry, just to remember what her mind was capable of. Still, she told herself it was too late. The world didn't wait for people like her, and even if it had, she'd missed the train. Now, pushing 50, with knees that ached in the cold and a daughter living 3 states away, Evelyn worked the night shift in a building full of people who didn't know her name. But she still carried her languages like seeds in her pocket, hoping, foolishly, that one day they might matter again. That week she heard whispers about a change coming: budget cuts, layoffs, restructuring. She clung to her routine, to her silence, to the invisible rhythm of mopping and wiping and disappearing. And she still believed, somehow, that maybe if she worked hard enough she could hold her life together. But the truth was, the cracks had already started to show. The hallway outside the executive lounge was silent, except for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the distant whir of a copy machine left running overnight. Evelyn stood motionless, mop in hand, staring at the stain that wouldn't come off the marble. It wasn't just dirt, it was something spilled from a high-end espresso, maybe caramel or hazelnut. Someone important, probably. Someone who wouldn't notice her even if she scrubbed until her knuckles bled. She crouched, poured the solution and tried again. It had been a brutal week. Her supervisor, Dennis, called her into the maintenance office on Tuesday. He didn't look her in the eye. "We had a complaint," he muttered, tapping a manila folder. "Someone said you were rude to a visitor yesterday." Evelyn blinked. "Rude," he shrugged, didn't smile, gave short answers. "I know it's probably nothing, but corporate says we have to file a warning." It felt like a slap. Evelyn had spent years perfecting invisibility. No mistakes, no disruptions. She apologized, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. She signed the warning with shaking hands. On Wednesday, she found her paycheck lighter. An error, maybe. Or maybe one of the new deductions they'd warned about in the last email she couldn't access. Company updates now only came via the staff portal, and she didn't have login credentials. She was third party, not really part of the team. That night, it rained hard. Cold, sharp drops against the high windows. The janitorial break room flooded slightly from a cracked ceiling tile. No one came to fix it. Evelyn mopped it up and left a wet floor sign. She ate her dinner in the supply closet, a soggy sandwich, no appetite. Her daughter had called that morning, breathless with excitement. Rachel had landed a new job in Boston. A promotion. She was moving. "I wish I could visit more, Mom," she'd said. "But you know how things are." Evelyn had said she understood. Of course she understood. She sat on a crate of industrial soap bottles that night, chewing silently while tears welled up and dried just as quickly. No time for self-pity, no space for it. On Thursday, 2 junior associates passed by as Evelyn was shelving toilet paper in the ladies' room. "She's still here?" one whispered. "She's probably got a mattress in the basement," the other laughed. They didn't know she heard. They never did. That night, she clocked out 5 minutes late. No one noticed, no one ever did. And still, she showed up the next day on time, hair tied back, uniform clean, eyes heavy. But something cracked. She started to wonder if she'd wasted it all, the dreams, the discipline, the sacrifices. What had it all been for? That evening, she was cleaning the lower-level lobby when she noticed a young man at the vending machine, struggling to read the instructions on the touchscreen. He looked frustrated, lost. His accent was thick, Eastern European maybe. He muttered something in Polish. Without thinking, Evelyn walked over. "Try pressing that one," she said softly in perfect Polish. "It resets the screen." He blinked. "You speak Polish?" She smiled. "A little." He got his snack, thanked her twice, then left. Evelyn stood there a moment longer. It wasn't a grand moment, it wasn't heroic, but it reminded her. She hadn't lost everything, not completely. Still, she didn't expect anything to change. Not that night, not ever. She returned to her cart, took the service elevator back up to clean the east wing. And in that moment, she didn't know that someone had seen the whole thing from a glass conference room upstairs. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there that late. Thomas Whitmore lowered his coffee cup, staring at the monitor feed that showed the vending machine lobby. He watched Evelyn disappear back into the shadows. He didn't say a word, but something had shifted. "And you? Have you ever felt like no one really saw you? Like your worth was hidden beneath a uniform or a title that didn't tell your story? If something in Evelyn's silence speaks to you, share your story in the comments. You never know. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to find their voice again." The next evening, Evelyn arrived early. Not by much, just 15 minutes, but early enough to avoid the rush of voices and carts in the loading dock. She liked the quiet before the chaos. It gave her time to breathe. She had barely tied her apron when her supervisor appeared. "Evelyn," he said, scratching his neck. "Mr. Whitmore asked to see you." She blinked. "Me? Yeah, he's still upstairs. Said it won't take long." Her chest tightened. 1,000 thoughts ran through her mind. Had she missed a shift? Was this about the vending machine incident? She wiped her hands on a paper towel, straightened her sleeves, and followed the directions to the executive floor, someplace she had never been. The elevator was silent. Too clean. Too fast. When the doors opened, she was met by soft lighting, glass walls, and quiet carpeted halls. Everything smelled like citrus and polished wood. Thomas Whitmore was waiting outside his office, arms crossed, not with impatience, but with something closer to curiosity. "Ms. Carter," he said, offering a smile. "Do you have a minute?" She nodded. "Yes, sir." He led her inside, offered her a seat, poured her a glass of water without asking. Then he sat across from her, elbows on his knees, eyes steady. "I saw what you did yesterday," he said simply. Evelyn's breath caught. "With the vending machine, and with the Italian tourist last week, and the technician on Tuesday, and the German woman at reception a month ago." She looked down. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overstep." "You didn't," he interrupted gently. "You helped, efficiently, calmly, fluently." He leaned back. "How many languages do you speak?" She hesitated. 9, including English. He smiled, but it wasn't smug. It was respectful. "How?" She told him, not the whole story, but enough. Her love of language, her years of study, the books, the recordings, the memory exercises, the dreams that never quite died. When she finished, Thomas sat back in silence for a long moment. "I don't know what we're going to do next," he said finally, "but I do know this. Someone like you shouldn't be invisible here." Evelyn said nothing. But as she left his office and stepped back into the elevator, something had shifted. She didn't know if anything would come of it, but for the first time in years, she wanted to believe. The following Monday, Evelyn received an envelope at the start of her shift. Inside was a printed memo from the executive office. "Temporary language support assignment. Multilingual liaison." Her hands trembled. It wasn't a promotion, not yet. But it was something. Thomas had arranged for her to join a morning meeting with a delegation from Milan. The company's usual interpreter had cancelled. Evelyn was to assist. She hadn't been in a boardroom in over 2 decades. That morning, she walked in with a borrowed blazer and a quiet pulse pounding in her ears. 10 suited executives, half from Italy, half from the US, sat around a long, polished table. Thomas nodded at her. She took the seat he'd reserved. At first, the Italian seemed confused. A janitor? But when Evelyn greeted them in flawless professional Italian, complete with the regional accent, they sat back, eyebrows raised. As the meeting unfolded, Evelyn translated with precision and empathy. She didn't just relay words, she captured tone, rhythm, meaning. By the end, the room was nodding, laughing, relaxed. One Italian rep said aloud, "She understands better than our last 3 translators." Thomas smiled. "I know." When it ended, Evelyn helped stack cups and quietly exited. But something followed her out of that room. Awareness. People began to notice her. That week, she was asked to assist with calls to a supplier in Japan, then to translate contract revisions from French. Each time, she delivered. Quietly. Completely. Word began to spread. And for the first time in years, Evelyn walked through the lobby without looking down. But visibility came with weight. Some staff whispered. A few rolled their eyes. "The janitor's a genius now," she overheard once in the hallway. Others were colder. Margaret Sloan, Director of Operations, confronted Thomas. "What exactly are we doing?" she snapped. "Creating jobs out of charity?" Thomas replied calmly, "No, we're correcting an oversight." Still, Evelyn felt the tension. In meetings, some managers ignored her input. Others asked, "Can someone double-check her translation?" as if waiting for her to slip. At home, she stared at her notebooks and wondered if this was all a mistake, if she was too old, too late, if the years of silence had eroded something essential. One evening, after an exhausting day translating 3 back-to-back meetings, she almost asked to be reassigned, back to the night shift, back to what was known. But then a letter arrived, handwritten, no signature. "We see you. Please don't stop." She didn't know who sent it, but she kept it in her pocket the next day. And when Margaret walked past her without saying a word, Evelyn stood a little straighter. This wasn't a favor. It was a beginning. 2 weeks later, Whitmore Transit faced a crisis. A high-stakes negotiation with an infrastructure firm from Morocco was falling apart. Miscommunication, delays, cultural missteps. The delegation was flying in that afternoon. Legal was panicking. The international team had no interpreter ready. Thomas stood in the middle of the 18th floor conference room, rubbing his temples. "Get Evelyn," he said. A pause. "Sir?" someone asked, as if they hadn't heard right. "Evelyn Carter. Bring her up." 20 minutes later, Evelyn walked in wearing a navy blouse, black slacks, and a quiet confidence that hadn't been there weeks before. She took her seat at the far end of the table, nodding respectfully to the 5 Moroccan executives. The room was tense, polite but sharp. One of the men asked a question in Arabic, measured, formal. Without missing a beat, Evelyn replied in clear, fluid Arabic, not just the language, but the dialect. She bowed her head slightly in greeting, choosing words that reflected dignity and familiarity. The men blinked. One smiled. Another leaned forward, intrigued. As the meeting progressed, Evelyn guided both sides through contract revisions, cultural nuances, expectations, and even lunch orders. When the Moroccan chairman made a tense joke, she translated it with care and offered a small, appropriate reply of her own that made everyone chuckle. The atmosphere shifted. By the time papers were signed, hands were shaking and emails were being exchanged for follow-ups. When the Moroccan chairman stood, he turned to Evelyn and touched his chest gently. A traditional sign of gratitude. "You speak more than language," he said in English. "You speak people." Thomas watched the exchange with a knot in his throat. After everyone left, the room sat in stunned silence. One junior associate whispered, "She just saved a $12 million deal." Someone else added, "She didn't just save it, she owned it." Thomas walked over to her. "Are you free for a moment?" Evelyn stood. "Of course." He led her out to the balcony overlooking the city. Sunlight poured in behind them. The skyline shimmered. "You didn't just translate today," he said. "You bridged something I didn't even know we were missing." She looked at him, hesitant. "I'm just doing what I know." "No," he replied. "You're doing what you were born to do." And for the first time, Evelyn believed it. This wasn't borrowed. This wasn't luck. This was hers. Weeks later, a new nameplate was installed on the 14th floor. Simple, elegant, brushed steel letters. Evelyn Carter, Director of Cultural Integration, no ribbon cutting, no speech, just a quiet symbol of something long overdue. Evelyn now worked alongside teams she used to clean up after. She met with partners from Seoul, Dubai, and Montreal. She designed cross-cultural onboarding sessions. She trained department heads on language nuance, etiquette, and human empathy. But her favorite project, a new internal initiative, the Hidden Voices program. Open to all non-administrative staff, it offered free language courses, mentoring, and access to promotion pipelines. In the first week, over 60 janitors, cafeteria workers, and maintenance staff signed up, and Evelyn made a point to meet every single one. She told them the truth. That fluency wasn't always about grammar. That brilliance didn't always wear a suit. And that sometimes the most overlooked voices carried the clearest truths, because she'd lived it. She was it. And now, she was listening. How many Evelyns have you walked past without knowing? How many stories have stayed hidden behind name tags, uniforms, and silence, just waiting for someone to ask? Maybe you've been that person, overlooked, underestimated, quietly carrying something extraordinary. If this story moved you, let it echo. Leave a like so others can find it. Share it with someone who needs a reminder. Their value doesn't disappear just because it hasn't been seen yet. And tell me in the comments, who's the most incredible hidden voice you've ever met? Or maybe it's you. Because brilliance doesn't ask for permission, it waits until the moment someone finally listens. And if you believe there are more stories like Evelyn's out there, subscribe to the channel. We've got so many more to tell.